Welcome to Believe It or Not, an Interfaith Grand River program. I'm your host, August Edelman, and I'm joined today by Inder Singh, who's a member of the Sikh community. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here. I'm always interested in talking about my faith. I come from engineering background, so I get very few chances to talk about it. So I'm very thankful that you invited me here.
Well, perfect. This is a great setup then. So tell me a bit about yourself then. So you're an engineer?
I am an engineer, yes. Now I work as engineering manager for multiple organizations, but my main role right now is as an executive director at Khalis Foundation, which is a Sikh technological organization that creates apps and products for Sikh audience, for Sikh prayer, Sikh meditation, that kind of thing.
That's really cool. We had someone on a few weeks back who was talking about this kind of combination of, the religious and the spiritual and the kind of technological and the way that those things can work together. So that's interesting. So sort of like things like apps and, things that help you with breathing and meditation and stuff?
Yeah, so we have a bunch of apps. One of the major apps, which is popular, is called Sikh to the Max. And it's actually an app that is used in Sikh temples, Sikh gurdwaras, where they would, as a person is doing kirtan, which is recitation of our religious book. Mm-hmm. In the background, they will see the meaning and the lines that are being sung, so that the audience can connect with it directly.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because many of our diaspora has spread around the world, so many of the kids and the newer generations don't know the exact meanings of the words. Mm-hmm. They know English very well. Yeah. So what it would look like in a Sikh Gurdwara with our software is that the person is singing, person is doing the recitation from our religious book, but in the background you can see those verses in Punjabi, which is the language it's written in, and also in English.
That's really cool.
It's more like helping Sikh Gurdwaras and Sikh temples to understand Gurbani better.
Wow, that's really cool. And sounds also like it could be an accessibility tool as well.
Yeah.
For helping people to follow along and get engaged. And
yeah.
That's so cool. So what brought you to wanting to be involved in something like that? So obviously you are Sikh. Were you born that way? Were you involved as a child in your community?
Yeah. I was born as a Sikh, and my family was very religious, and so I was involved in Sikh community from the day I was born. Into this technology and Sikh technology, I was really interested in computers as a kid, as an engineer, and I started coding at age of 7.
Oh my!
Really early. My mother was doing some coursework, and I started reading her books and started typing the same programs in computer and see how it worked. And so that's how my interest got into programming, but I was also really interested in my religion, Sikh. So after graduation, I was trying to find a job. I didn't like a lot of corporate life, so I was trying to kind of chart a way of my own. And I was doing freelancing, and someone hired me on Upwork, and I didn't know if it was a Sikh, but the name sounded like a Sikh name. Mm-hmm. And so I applied for it, I got selected, and then I realized it's the same app, is the founder of the same app, Manjot Singh, that I have been using to do my daily prayer. So they hired me to do do some work on their app, and as I worked on it, I even though afterwards I went and did other things with other companies, I kept volunteering for the organization. I stayed involved, and that's how. And just this year, from this January, they offered me a position of executive director, and I took it.
Wow, Mazel Tov! That's incredible.
Yeah.
So what brought you to Waterloo Region?
From 2014, I have been working remotely, so work from home. And as I came here, it was very I just came to Canada 2 years ago, and we had no friends, we had no social life, and it was getting very stagnant, staying at home. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to go out and do something, and that's when a friend of mine, Komal, she she told me there's an opportunity to teach part-time in Conestoga College. And I took that, and because of that I moved in the Waterloo region.
Right. Very cool. We also had her on the show, I think about a year ago now.
Yeah, she told me she was super excited, and she said, "Oh, you have to be on that show as well." I said, okay, sure.
Awesome. So tell me a bit, I think probably people don't know a lot about Sikhism. Tell me about maybe some of the kind of principles or ideas that are kind of really close to your heart, that really shape you.
I think every religion has two parts: the idea of a God and idea of how to live. So in Sikhism, the idea of God is a force, energy. All of these words fall short, but like if I'm trying my best to translate it, so the idea of God in Sikhism, which is what closest to my heart and just is very interesting to me, is the idea that God is just an energy flowing through everything and everything that exists, and it's not an entity per se, but it's also an entity at the same time. It's not an entity devoid of the creation. So the creator and creation are like an intertwined thing. But just like some infinities are bigger than other infinities, in Sikhism it says that even when the creation stops existing, the creator still is there. Like the creation, universe, and the multiverse is an infinity. But there's a bigger infinity when all the creation stops existing that still exists. So then there's the second part is how do you reach? How do you be aware of that creator? And that's through self-inquiry. So you go into meditation, you go into dhyan, and you find that infinite creator within you, not as something that's hidden inside you, separate from you, but as a realization, oh wait, I am God. And that's a very profound statement to make and can be misinterpreted. But when an enlightened Sikh says, I am God, he won't say it out loud, but say he realizes I am God, is not the definition of I star is very different. Like that I am God, that's the same, like I am the creator. But the definition of I is no longer, if I get enlightened tomorrow, I hope, then, and I end up saying I am God, it's not I in the pre-saying is God. Right. It's that I had stopped existing. And when you stop existing, the only thing that exists is God. Right. So that's where the idea of that you can realize God as your own self comes from. So you just go into the deeper states of meditation, and at the end there's a kind of, that meditation is kind of like a suicide of self, a suicide of identity. So when you stop identifying with anything, it happens. It's not something you do. It happens that you realize that I'm not different from God. I'm like a wave and God is an ocean. And so I'm something that God is doing. So, and then there's other part is like how to live, which is I think very common in most religion. Is like be kind to your neighbor, do community service, be nice to people, like service, seva, and then meditation part I already talked about. And then we have the world's largest, like Sikhs have the world's largest community kitchens where everyone is fed free.
Wow.
Without any questions asked. Like you don't have to be a Sikh. You go to a Sikh temple and you can eat for free. And you can get shelter for free. And that's like just a service to humanity. Because and this flows from the definition of God, because God permeates in everything and is flowing through everything. So serving anything is serving God. Yeah.
That's beautiful and sort of haunting, the idea of being a wave on the ocean. And I like that. Like, ooh, it gave me kind of chills. It's really interesting.
Yeah, the experience is called Anand, which does not actually have an English translation. That when you do realize you are a wave, or wave and ocean are not different, right? You can't divide that this is a wave and this is an ocean.
Right.
So, and the other simile they use is metaphor. They use is you are a ray and he's the sun, or she's the sun. We use both genders when describing to God. So you are a ray and he's a sun. You cannot have a ray without the sun, and you cannot have sun without the rays. Like, how do you experience sun is through the rays. So when you realize that, the experience is so ecstatic that there's no drug in the world, there's no happiness in the world that equates it. And it's so the experience of actually realizing and being aware of, in deeper states of meditation, when you feel that presence, is such an experience that you become silent, and like you don't actually go out and say I am God.
Right.
So you become so silent because it's such an amazing experience and you're just absorbed in it. And the Punjabi or Sanskrit word for that is Anand.
I quite selfishly love having these conversations. It's always like, oh, I learned something new. It's so interesting. and
Yeah, but there is, like, most people, when they are walking down this path, they experience a place where your mind is kind of vanishing, because your self-identity has to not exist for you to feel that, for you to experience that, right? And when your mind is just about to leaves your identity, you get very scared because you're so attached to it. You're like, this is me, this is my body, this is my friend, this is my, like, our whole emotional apparatus is born out of us identifying with something, with our emotions, with our body. Like, I am feeling good sitting on this comfy chair because I identify with my body.
Right.
And once I stop identifying with it, oh, what would I feel? So there's an unknown there.
Right.
And people do talk about there's a moment of being very scared, but and that's where the teacher, the guru, another very important part of Sikhism is actually the core central part of Sikhism. The word Sikhism actually means a student. So our God is the teacher. And we believe he came in the form of human to teach us about his true reality. And so that's where the holding hands of the teacher comes into play, that you're very scared in that path and he's like walking down that path, but you are holding his hand, so you're able to walk through that tough period where you have to leave your sense of identity and you have to become the God.
So if God is a teacher, then you're a student?
Yes, we are students, and the job of the teacher is to make students as good as the teacher.
Yeah.
So basically, teacher is coming to us and saying, become me.
Right.
And there's a very, very nice, actually, historical event. Sikhism is not too old. It's just 76 years old. In 3 months, it would be 577. That's when the first Sikh guru or prophet in like Judeo-Christian terms, a prophet, or we call it teacher, guru, appeared, and his name was Guru Nanak.
Right.
So he came 576 years ago, and then there were 10 gurus which took human form. And the 10th guru, so because the 10 gurus taking human form, they had a kind of a job to do. And so 10th guru is like just doing the final touches to the infrastructure that he has created. And so what he does at the end is that he gives the Sikhs a very high honor. What he does is he calls everyone. It's also a bit scary story, but he calls everyone on day of Vaisakhi, which is in few months. He calls everyone. There are like millions of people sitting there, and he comes out, and in his hand is a very big sword. So he raises it and he says, I need a head. Like, I need one of you to sacrifice your head for me. And everyone goes silent. Some of them went to the Guru's mother to complain about Guru. Like, what is Guruji doing? He's like asking heads. So one guy stood up, by Dharam Singh. He stood up, he gave his he said, I'll give you your head. I will give you my head. Guruji took him to the tent, and there's a blood flowing out. And then there's another guy. Then there's another guy. There are 5 people who went in the tent, and there's blood flowing out, and people are like shouting, and things are getting crazy. But after 5 heads, there's silence. Guruji also goes inside, and out comes Guruji with those 5 people, live and well.
Mm-hmm.
And then he bows down in front of them and says, now you are my Guru and I'm your student. So he gives them what's called Amrit. Amrit is kind of like an initiation, similar to baptism,
Okay.
but also in a different way. So what he does is he gives those 5, we call them 5 beloveds, Panch Pyare. So he gives them 5 beloveds his attire and appearance. So the way I dress, you dress. The way I have weapons, you have weapons, and that's why I'm wearing a weapon right now.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I wear a turban, you wear a turban. I don't cut my hair, you don't cut your hair. So he gives his appearance, his blessing, and his just whole identity to these 5 people. And then he bows down in front of them. Not bows down, but like he goes on a knee in front of them and says, now you give me. So how he does it is, when he took them to the tent, he gave them some of a liquid called Amrit. And that's a water mixed with something called patasa, which is kind of a sugary thing. And along with that, he read the Sikh prayer. So he read the Sikh Gurbani,
Mm-hmm.
and with the power of the Gurbani, he converted that water into a nectar, like an ambrosial nectar of which we call Amrit. Amrit actually means something that you drink and you become immortal.
Okay.
So he created that immortality nectar. If I'm translating all wrong, but I hope the audience is forgiving. But so he took that nectar and he made all of those 5 beloveds drink it, and that's how they became immortal. In
Okay.
that sense, in a metaphorical sense, not from a body standpoint. But and then he went out, and then he asked them to now give that Amrit to him.
Mm-hmm.
There are different variations of stories from different accounts, but more or less is the same. So, but that's when a phrase comes into Sikh ether, is that Ape Gur Chela, which means the master and the student in one.
Mm-hmm.
So because he sat down in front of those 5 and said, now you give me Amrit. And that was the final, last human guru in human form that we had.
Okay.
And after that, the guruship was passed down to our religious book, which you don't consider as a book. For this conversation, I'm using the word book, but we consider as a living
Right.
guru. So, and now when you go to a gurudwara, what you see sitting on a throne in the middle is that same book.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So tell me a bit about the community.
A gurudwara is a place where you go to meet what we call as Sangat. Sangat is a congregation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's other Sikh people going there to pray,
Mm-hmm.
to meditate. And a few are sitting near the Guru, and they are reading from the Guru. Few have musical instruments in their hands, and they're reciting the verses written in the Guru. And majority of them are sitting down listening to what the person is either reciting from the Guru or the singing from the Guru.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what a Gurudwara looks like when you go inside. And on the side, somewhere there will be free food
Mm-hmm.
being distributed, depending upon what size the Gurudwara is. Like, for example, the Gurudwara in near Mississauga, the DC Gurdwara. There it would be almost 24 hours.
Wow.
Like whenever you go, there will be food being served. In a much local Gurdwara, smaller Gurdwara, maybe in mornings, evenings. But you can go anywhere, anytime, and ask for it, and they would give you food. And so that's happening at the same time. Then other people are cleaning and doing all the chores required for the maintenance of Gurdwara. That part is called seva, service. And yeah, so that's what environment in Gurdwara looks like. It's a very active environment outside, and near Guru it's a very meditative environment. So when you're feeling like energetic, you go to the kitchen and you like wash utensils, or you clean floors, or you do any kind of service. And when you feel like meditating, you go inside and you sit and you listen to that. So that's what the community looks like. Community is very much dedicated, like seva and simran, both service and meditation. These are the two pillars of Sikhism. And a part of seva is also dan, which is charity. So you will find Sikhs doing a lot of donations. When there was Syria refugee crisis, a lot of Sikhs were contributing there. When I think in Canada we had some trucking protests, that was before we came here. Like Sikhs were distributing food to them. When there was COVID, Sikhs were distributing oxygen in India, because oxygen cylinders they were very scarcely available, and people were charging too much for it. Like people were trying to make buck off of that misery. But there were, in Sikh Gurdwaras, there was oxygen service. Like people were giving oxygen to people who had COVID at that time.
I mean, it sounds joyful, is how it sounds to me, that would bring like a deep sense of deep joy,
Yeah.
But I don't want to put that on you. How do you feel?
I love that you captured that. There's like so much. So there's a concept called Chardikala in Sikhism. It's called ever rising. So if I have to translate it, it's ever rising spirits. So you will find, not all, but like many Sikh people, they are in hospital. They have like 4 bones broken, and they're like hanging by thread. And you ask them, how are you? And they will be like, Chardikala. Like they will loudly say Chardikala. That means I'm amazing. So that's a spirit, because another part of Sikhism is that we had to fight a lot of wars. Always defensive wars, never to increase your like political or material gains. So because of that, the warrior spirit is very much ingrained in Sikhism, and part of that is being always very happy. Like your legs are, you are in war, you're going to get cut, you're going to have broken ribs and legs. So you have to create a mind that can say, when you're in excruciating pain, you are able to say that I'm amazing, I'm doing great. So I'm glad you picked up on that joy vibe.
Has there been a time in your life when your faith has been a challenge for you?
Oh yeah. So I almost became an atheist. If in my, how old would I be? 13, 14 at that time. I don't know why. I don't even remember how I got into atheism. Maybe I loved science too much. I don't know. I don't remember that part. But I studied in a convent school. And so very much closer. Like I have a very good relationship with Christianity. And so I was in a convent school, and I was studying there. And for some reason or the other, not because of the school, but I can't even remember, maybe some teacher or something, I went into atheism, and I had lost full faith in existence of a creator. And I was I'm very much like scientific study based guy. Like I need scientific studies and things like that. I need proof. And but because the culture was such, I was like, since the day I'm born, I'm like so much into religion and all of that. So somehow I prayed about that to God as well. Like it's very confusing. So I said, here I am. I'm an atheist now. Like, just go ahead, do something if you want me back.
Right.
So very arrogant, you want me back, right? So, like, go ahead, do something if you want me back. And oh my God, he did. I prayed in a gurdwara saying that like, it looks like I don't believe in you anymore. So do something, and he did. And then, yeah, it was clear, very clear to me that yes, there is something, and at least meditation was something. Like, there was something about there's something right in meditation. And then as time went by, I think every day I doubted. There's not a single thing about Sikhism that I have not doubted and come across. So it's like, why to keep here? Kept like, and then that doubt went away. And why should I, like, if God isn't everything, why do I go to Gurdwara and sit with Sangat? And then I'm sitting with Sangat and I'm feeling something. Okay, that's your response. So I feel like maybe everyone feels it, but very personally, the things that would convince me was brought in front of me to make sure I don't go away. So, like, I feel like none of my faith has no credit of my own, like zero. If it was on me, I would have been a very strong atheist today, like relying on scientific studies and things like that. And I still do. I still rely a lot on scientific studies for various things. But some energy forced me and kept me close to God, and I don't know why.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, a lot of doubt. I think maybe the saving grace, and this is again trying to take credit for it, probably, but the saving grace was me. When I am atheist, I was still praying to him.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, this guy, he doesn't believe in me, and he's still praying to me. So maybe that helped. Yeah. I was not, so for become a Sikh, you're not born as you can be born in a Sikh family, but you have to make a commitment to becoming a Sikh, which is when you become a Singh, you become a Khalsa. Khalsa means pure. And that's a promise you have to take to, like, I'll die for others and I'll die for, like, you there's an initiation ceremony. And that I took when I was in college. So until then, after that, I didn't have any doubts. But before that, I just doubted everything and made sure that I knew my answers. Because there was a lot, and there still is, there's a lot of this in our society, in our community, because we have been through a lot of tough time, a lot of genocides, a couple of them. And we haven't had time to create a lot of, we have a lot of literature, but create a lot of modern literature about, like, why we do this and, like, going into depths of it. So many times I would ask people and they won't have answers. Why to keep here? Why to do this? So when I got baptized, I just wanted to have the answers. So I doubted everything before that.
I think I don't know, I find that comforting to hear that, like, I think sometimes there's this assumption that people who are religious or people of faith are kind of don't ever think about doubt or don't ever feel conflicted or have never thought about that in their past. Yeah. And I think, at least in my experience, talking to people, the opposite is true. Yeah. Is that the doubt part is part of what brings you closer.
Yeah. In my case, like, I was doubting this morning. But then I remember, oh my God, you remember that day when he, like, very clearly showed me he exists? So it's like that for me.
Yeah.
Like, even if I want to, I cannot deny her presence. I keep using his, but it's like just out of habit and also because of English language. But in Sikhism, it's like both genders, or all genders.
So I guess I feel like I could just talk to you all day. Like, tell me about these. But my last question is sort of, if there's something that you were thinking, I hope I get to talk about this today. I really want to share this with the folks at home. This is something that's a really kind of key idea. Is there something, kind of a last thing you'd want to share?
We identify with our bodies, and then that is easy to leave. Like you would say, I have a disease. You wouldn't say, I am a disease, right? So that's very easy to leave, the identification with body. But identification with your intellect is very hard to let go.
Yeah.
And debating about a religion, which religion, this religion, that becomes an intellectual drug. And with just like all drugs, you do it to enjoy first. And then you cannot enjoy without it. And then even with it, you cannot enjoy, but you cannot survive without it. Like that's the like just declining progress of your state that you have when you are consuming a drug. And I believe debating about certain areas of religion, like whenever, for example, I'm in a Christian church, right? Someone would cast, and I have a lot of atheist friends because of my history. So because of, so if someone has to cast doubts on Christianity, they would start at Genesis. And because it's an intellectual drug on how the world was formed, and it's like there are good arguments for or against it. And I'm glad that people are coming with very good for arguments now, but whatever. But even both for and against, both arguments, they are just being done to satisfy your intellectual ego. And it's a drug. And it does not matter in your practice of how you're living, how the world was formed. Maybe it does after a certain level of practice, but where most people, including myself, when I debate about religion or something, when we debate about religion, we are not at that place where something like how the world or universe was formed matters at all. What matters is, how am I treating my neighbor? How am I caring about the world, caring about humanity, and what is my relationship with God, which I can come out and say I do not fully understand. So like, what's my relation there? And so yeah, that would be one thing that I always like to touch on, is like rather than playing into those few things that are very easy to play with when it comes to doubting religion, why not look at other things which are so profound? Things like the power of love, or the oneness of human experience.
Thank you so much for being on the show and sharing all your thoughts and your experience. And it's been really interesting. And I'm sure the folks at home also have hopefully gotten something out of this. I know I have. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. And I apologize for all the mistakes I did. I can count 100 of them right now. So if I misrepresented any fact or anything, please, I'm doing it for the first time. Just forgive me. I don't want any mean comments, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on Believe It or Not.